forced me to have a lot of thoughtful conversations around how policy should shape and prevent the kind of gun violence that we've seen, from mass shootings to street crime. And it was really that which led me, as somebody who understood, had a good working knowledge of how a lot of firearms work. That's why I was asked to be part of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most expansive gun safety bill to pass in the last 70 years, in the last 30 years. And in particular, to work on a couple of aspects of that around gun trafficking and straw purchases, to give prosecutors more tools to be able to hold people to account for those offenses. As I got onto the Appropriations Committee, it opened up a whole lot of opportunities for me to work with state and local law enforcement, not on a high-level policy front, but on a more granular level. And Sheriff Stewart, in particular, was one of the first law enforcement officers to really make me understand how much time her deputies lose to transporting evidence all around the state when you don't have enough infrastructure to analyze it close to home. So we worked with the sheriff a year or two ago now to get a DNA analysis machine in Doña Ana County. That process, along with some of the other investigations that have been very high profile here in the state, led me to start questioning why we didn't have more NIBIN machines. These are the machines that analyze shell casings and really are able to quantify the geometric relationship between a particular casing and a particular firearm. Why we didn't have those all around the state. And I was able to work through the appropriations process to get funding this year for a little over $1 million to put NIBIN machines in Farmington and Gallup and Las Cruces and Roswell, rather than having law enforcement officers driving from the very ends of the state to Santa Fe and Albuquerque, where the only machines exist right now. We were able to work with the Attorney General so that those 4 machines will be part of the Attorney General's Crime Gun Intelligence Center, which he is going to tell you about, which relates to some of what you see over here to my left. And we're really excited about this partnership that also pays for a couple of staff members to be able to staff these machines in the first year as well. If you have a gun crime and you have a piece of evidence, that evidence has to get to where it's analyzed. Someone has to drive that, and all too often it's an actual law enforcement officer, a deputy, or a member of the local municipal police force that could be driving from Las Cruces to Albuquerque or Santa Fe to make sure that prosecutors have the tools to be able to hold the perpetrator of that gun crime accountable. I think this is a set of infrastructure that's really going to improve the efficiency of that overall. But most importantly, it's also going to take a lot of time that should be spent on actual shoe leather police work and put it back there instead of driving evidence around the state. With that, I'm very excited to introduce one of my partners in all of this, our Attorney General, who has been working closely with us to figure out how do we better leverage federal funding to make sure that prosecutors and the Attorney General's office can really be more effective at going after these gun crimes. Attorney General Raul Torres.
So I want to begin this morning by thanking Senator Heinrich and Sheriff Stewart for joining us today. The genesis of the Crime Gun Intelligence Center here at the New Mexico Department of Justice was something that we actually advocated for during the early part of the 2023 legislative session. Unfortunately, during that process, we didn't really have an opportunity to describe in detail for policymakers the really impactful new technology that has been made available to frontline investigators. As Senator Heinrich pointed out, NIBIN machines have been the backbone of crime gun intelligence centers in communities all across this country. But as everyone here knows, New Mexico continues to struggle with incredibly high violent crime. We, according to the latest UCR reports, are the second most dangerous state in the United States. And according to that same data, the unsolved rate of violent crime is nearly 75%. In response to that, ATF and other federal law enforcement agencies have thankfully deployed a number of NIBIN machines to large metro areas. And recently, the Albuquerque Police Department and others have benefited from that and used that technology to solve some high impact and very important violent crime cases. But as someone who's responsible for a statewide law enforcement approach, one that is grounded in new technology and really relies on data, I felt it was imperative for us to come up with a network that covered not just the metro area, but the entire state. And I have to say, I heard time and again from constituents from as far away as Farmington all the way down to Las Cruces, that oftentimes those communities aren't given the kind of attention, the kind of support, the kind of resources that they need. And so it was in thinking about that technology and the lack of investment in data-driven approaches that led us to try and collaborate. And we were very grateful to have a willing partner in Senator Heinrich. And we are grateful that he has the ability now with his position in Washington to help steer really important resources, not just to the metro area, but to other parts of the state. In the first iteration, the Crime Gun Intelligence Center will work in those four communities in Farmington, Gallup, Roswell, and Las Cruces to not only establish NIBIN machines, implement them in partnership with local law enforcement agencies, but to engage in meaningful training, because the technology will only take you so far. We actually really need the buy-in, the training, and the commitment of frontline investigators and law enforcement officers whenever shots are fired in those communities to go out and recover casings so that those casings can then be analyzed and traced back to networks that we know not only traffic in firearms, but trade firearms for narcotics or use firearms in a variety of different violent crimes, not just in the metro area, but across jurisdictional boundaries. It's that kind of collaborative approach, data-driven approach, that links the shoe leather and hard work of frontline police officers with advanced technology that I really think is going to push this in a new direction. I know we have a lot of work left to do, but this is the kind of precise and data-driven approach that I think we need. And as Senator Heinrich pointed out, I also think this is going to be a valuable resource for policymakers in Santa Fe, because for far too long, the debate about how to deal with gun violence, how to approach gun safety, has been unnecessarily polarized and drawn into a political debate that oftentimes doesn't move us in a way that's most effective and most helpful for frontline law enforcement officers. And for example, we don't know, because we don't collect enough data, where those guns are coming from, where those guns are being traded, how they're being acquired. This kind of data will really shed light on that, and it will not only aid frontline investigators, but aid policymakers to come up with targeted, meaningful, impactful approaches that we're going to ultimately improve the day-to-day lives of the people that we serve. And so with that, I'm proud to introduce somebody who I know has committed herself and her life to protecting her community, Doña Ana County Sheriff Kim Stewart.
Thank you, and good morning. And thank you to Senator Heinrich and Attorney General Torres for this moment. I want to tell you how important NIBINs is. I know the senator spoke a little bit about this round. Here's how important NIBINs is. It connects this round to a specific weapon. A specific weapon. How invaluable is that? It's an incredible tool in our arsenal. And one of the things the senator and I agree on for several years now has been technology needs to start stepping up. Or we need to start stepping up to technology. We need to embrace that which can make policing more efficient, more scientific, more unarguable in a sense with prosecutions. On the other hand, it does leave us time for the art of policing. I've long believed that policing is an art and a science. And this is such a huge step. And I want to point out that because of the senator's bipartisan signature there on that particular bill he referenced, as a result of that, in September 2023, it came down from the president that all federal agencies must report to NIBINs, must report. Before they could report, now they must. So think of the collaboration there. And we have long believed in Doñana County regional work, regional law enforcement is where it's at. We can no longer operate as individual silos and be as effective as we can together. And let me close with one thing. In fiscal year 2022 in the United States, NIBIN's that network produced 190,000 actionable leads. That's amazing. So think of it. If we got 3 out of it, I'd be thrilled. But we'll be a regional depository, so to speak, for this information for both our federal and local partners. So thank you both. Really appreciate it.
We'll start here at Baxter. Yes, all the questions. Okay, perfect. Great for the journal.
What's the timeline? What's the goals and approach here to see how effective
When you're going to be implementing.
Sure. So the first phase is going to involve recruiting and partnering with ATF. That's the first step. So what we need to do is come up with a training program even before the machines are installed. There is a substantial amount of technical awareness and orientation that needs to happen. ATF is going to walk us through that. And one of the things that the sheriff referenced is that it's not even though these machines are located in those 4 communities, it's not limited to just those communities. What we did is we tried to organize this in a way that had geographic reach so that they were never too far away from even rural communities that may have recovered casings that needed to be implemented. We're obviously going to have to wait for the appropriation cycle to work its way through and to come down. It's in the form of a grant, as I understand it, and we'll be administering that grant here at the Department of Justice. And once that process is done, the machines will be implemented and we'll go through the training process. That's phase 1. Once we start collecting data, then we need to start linking that data with other crime reports that we have. As you see on the graphic here on the right, that's in reference to something that we actually got started at the district attorney's office. And what it does is it attempts to integrate a variety of different sources of crime data that references vehicles, co-defendants, known associates, addresses, cell phones, anything that can be recovered and associated in a particular police report. What we've found is a lot of that information is isolated, and what we need to do is try and integrate that and deliver it in real time to Sheriff Stewart and others in law enforcement so that they can intervene and disrupt these networks.
That graphic is very similar to the way we started analyzing terrorism connections back in the 2000s in Afghanistan, and really using AI and databases to connect the dots between various different data sets. And the fact that the Attorney General is doing that here in New Mexico is very encouraging, because you start to get those prosecution rates up. The other thing he mentioned around training, which can start much sooner, is really critical as well, because if you respond to a shooting someplace in a given geography, one of the things that we need to have happen at the scene is for people to get out of the vehicle and look for these casings. That dramatically increases your ability. If you have casings, it increases your ability to connect to a specific gun. It also allows you to be able to prosecute. And so just the training piece of this can have a real impact on success rates as well.
you want to just talk about NIBIN and how it's been used in some of these high-profile cases?
So I think probably the best example of the impact that NIBIN has had and sort of shell casing analysis has had is the Solomon Pena case, for example, is the kind of case that frankly really benefited from the ability to collect shell casings and associate them from one crime scene to the next. It's been used in a variety of other specific crimes, and I know that APD is still in the process of collecting casings and linking using their ShotSpotter system. I would refer you probably to the Albuquerque Police Department and the Chief of Police there to give you a more detailed explanation of the impact that it's had. But I think fundamentally what it has done is shines a light on the fact that there are a number of guns that are actually utilized and traded within a particular gang or particular group, and it gets actually passed from one to the next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll get started on next.
Thank you.
Of course. Always. Yeah. Thanks for being here.